Well, you know, Chris, we don't get paid if our clients don't achieve positive, lasting change in behavior, not as judged by us or them, as judged by all those important stakeholders around them. Obviously, in stakeholder-centered coaching, the key word is that word stakeholder.
Yes.
Why don't you describe the role of the stakeholder and the importance of the stakeholder in our coaching process?
Changing behavior and perception in parallel is one of our key principles.
Okay.
So, yes, you have to change behavior. And I'll often ask the question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to change a behavior that's a habit? Oh, it's a 9. To get somebody to change their perception of you once they have formed it, cognitive dissonance is even harder.
Right.
So, the whole idea of the active engagement of stakeholders is to tell them what you're working on and then engage them. So when I meet with the stakeholders, and I do this with them all, usually on a teleconference, I tell them the ground rules as a stakeholder. Number one, the willingness to let go of the past. Holding on to what somebody did to you a year ago isn't going to help anybody. So I'm asking you to suspend that and only judge their improvement from this day forward on the couple of things that they picked.
Yeah, you might be good, but you really can't change the past.
You can't change the past. That's what it is. See?
It is what it is.
We can all have selective recall now and then, but the reality is you can't change the past.
Right.
And then be supportive of the process. Don't be a critic, a cynic, or a judge. And think about how it'll benefit you.
Right.
If and when this person becomes more effective at what you've said, they need to get better at. And then also, if you have the courage yourself, what's something you could do? For instance, you may say this person isn't clear a lot.
Right.
Well, don't walk out of the room until you're clear. Don't walk out and say, I got it, if you don't.
Right.
So much of this is working with the stakeholders as much as I as a coach, am always available to the stakeholders, and I tell them that. If there's something going on you want me to be aware of, pick up the phone, give me a call. This is very much of a systems approach. It's not just coach, coachee, and maybe the boss. It's the coach, coachee, and the stakeholders, of which the boss is always one of them.
Right.
That person's manager is always one of them. And it's just such a solid process. So stakeholders are critical to this.
Great. You know, Chris, of all of the coaches that use our process, you're one of the most successful. I think your results are right up there, equal to mine. You've done a fantastic job of helping people achieve positive long-term change in behavior. You don't have a PhD in this field. You've done a great job. To me, the definition of a great coach is not how many degrees do you have or how many books did you write? Do you get positive results for your clients? And on that score, you're right at the top. Without being immodest, what are you doing right? What are you doing right that kind of puts you at a level that's beyond a lot of the coaches that have been trained in our process?
I think the fact that I teach it, Frank Wagner and I teach it, really is helpful. I mean, because it's cognitive dissonance. You keep saying things over and over and over again. It really becomes who you are. And so teaching it just makes me a better coach. Now, everybody doesn't get to teach it. One of the things we tell people, just because you went through a 2-day certification, you're not a brain surgeon. There are plenty of things up on the Stakeholder Center Coaching webpage that you can continue to go. I mean, all of your videos, all of your writings, it's all there for people to, one of my questions to people is, how good do you want to be?
Right.
Whether it's a golfer or a skier or a coach, how good do you want to be?
Okay.
And you have to answer that question. So I think for somebody just starting out in this, learn the process. Get good with the process. It's simple. It's not that complicated. You help somebody pick a couple of leadership skills to work on. On my webpage, there's a list of most worked on leadership skills.
Right.
In an interview for a coaching engagement, I'll take that list on one piece of paper and hand it to somebody and say, if you could wave a magic wand, what are 2 things on here you'd like to be more effective at and be recognized and acknowledged by others as more effective at? I've never had anybody say, as I look at this, there isn't anything on here that I could possibly improve.
I have no room for improvement on any topic as judged by anyone.
Even if they're just trying to be humble, they're going to pick a couple of things.
Right.
Right? And then I would say, well, who are the dozen people around you that will know if you've
Right.
listening more effectively, holding people accountable, taking appropriate risks? Who would know?
Right.
You're really off to a fast, smart start right there. And I will tell you, even then, after that, let's say I get the coaching engagement and I interview a dozen people, probably 3/4 of the time, what they picked in the interview process to work on is what they picked after I've interviewed a dozen people.
You know, Chris, people often ask me, what if they want to work on something that's very different than what you would have picked? To be honest, I almost never have that happen. What they pick always seems to make sense to me.
Yes.
It's never been weird or unusual. And we also get their boss involved,
The boss
too.
has to say it.
Everybody has to approve it.
I had one coach call me a couple years ago, and he said, you know, I need your advice on this. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, well, I think the person I'm working with is going to pick the wrong goal.
Right.
I said, really? He said, yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a softball goal, and, you know, I mean, I think he should up the bar a little. How would you get him to change his mind? I said, I wouldn't. He said, you wouldn't? I said, no. He's got to take that goal and go in and talk to the boss. If the boss wants him to pick, keep your office in order,
Right.
and they're going to pay you to do that, it's not your job as the coach to structure what they're going to work on. It's them and the person that they work for. And if they get better at that, as seen by these dozen people, if that's not worth a multiple of what they're paying you, then don't do it.
Of course. And in my case, it's even more obvious. I'm working with the CEO of a major company. I'm sitting there. I have to tell them after I give them feedback, you must do it. Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm not somebody going to tell CEO what to do. On the other hand, the board of directors, they can do that. That's their job. That's not my job.
Well, and plus, if you get them to do something,
Right.
and then they don't get better at it, they'll say, well, I never thought that was important anyway. Marshall told me to do it. Or Chris told me to do it. No, I don't want to go there.
I totally agree. Great point.